Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 73rd class in our series on the Baha'i Faith. This will be our the last class explicitly on the progress of the Abrahamic religions and the revelation of Baha'u'llah. What we are going to do beginning next week will be the final formal class of this sort, where I do a presentation with slides and so on, and that will be on the passing of Baha'u'llah and events surrounding that important milestone in the succession and the successful succession of the faith. And we will compare it to what happened in the previous religions, particularly Islam. After that, we're going to meet every week instead of every other week. And it will be more of an informal fireside discussion where I will present discussions based on the books I've written on the Baha'i Faith, which are themselves meant to be informative for both Baha'is and non-Baha'is. So we'll begin with my first book I wrote, which was The Metaphorical Nature of Physical Reality, which sounds very formal, but it's really not. It's really a very accessible book. I don't expect you to read or have read the books, though you might want to look at the description of the books that are on my website, and I'll give you directions about that later this evening, and also in the information that I send out. So tonight we're going to deal with the two final works of Baha'u'llah, both of which are very much related to succession and to the covenant. One, the Tablet of Carmel, is called one of the charter documents of the covenant, and the Ad, which is, of course, the will and testament, the book of the covenant, as Baha'u'llah calls it, the book of my covenant, and it is his will and testament. And let me see if I have admitted everyone. Alex cannot be here tonight because he and his wife are having a baby. His wife is doing the hard work. Well, let me share my screen and we will get started with our examination of these two works. Obviously, in one brief class, well, it's not terribly brief, but 45 minutes, we can hardly do justice to either one of them. There's so much written about them. And again, as usual, the first place you want to go to see the succinct statement of the merits or importance of a work is God Passes By Shoghi Effendi. And so we'll look at what he says, and also we'll look at what the House of Justice says about the works as well, particularly about the Tablet of Carmel and how it becomes fulfilled. Since we will deal with the Tablet of Carmel first, because it was written first, 4 times, and this is from God Passes By, and this is an introduction to the Tablet of Carmel. 4 times he, Baha'u'llah, visited Haifa, his last visit being no less than 3 months long. In the course of that, and of course you've probably seen, I should have put a picture, but we've seen it before, of the tent that in which he stayed, though sometimes he would stay in one of the houses in the vicinity of the Carmelite village, I said not the Carmelite village, what am I talking about? The Carmelite monastery. He pitched his tent, which is called the Most Great Tabernacle. In the course of one of these visits, when his tent was pitched in the vicinity of the Carmelite monastery, he, the Lord of the vineyard, revealed the Tablet of Carmel, remarkable for its allusions and prophecies. On another occasion, he pointed out himself to Abdu'l-Baha as he stood on the slopes of that mountain, the site which was to serve as the permanent resting place of the Bab, on which a befitting mausoleum was later to be erected. So he, of course, if you've been to Carmel and on pilgrimage, you have seen the cypress trees behind the spot or on the spot where Baha'u'llah stood as he pointed out where the shrine of the Bab was to be built. But when he revealed the Tablet of Carmel, he was standing in the vicinity of the Carmelite ministry. I don't know why I'm saying that, the Carmelite monastery. And there are several hadiths, I guess you would say, about this event. How many of them are authoritative or authentic, I don't know, but to repeat them, one of them is that he revealed this tablet in such a powerful voice that the monks came out of the monastery to see what was going on. Of course, the Carmelite, the irony, and needless to say, is they're called Carmelite monks because they're on Mount Carmel, and they're on Mount Carmel because they're expecting the return of God on Carmel as prophesied. Another ironic hadith is that supposedly he signed the visitors book that they had at that, and said that I forget, something like the Lord has come, or I have returned, to something I forget. I'm sure one of you will know and will tell me after we finish our class tonight. And then a third important event associated with this revelation of the Tablet of Carmel is that the place where he stood when he revealed it, there is a rather large obelisk, which will be a spot where in the future Mashriq al-Azkar, a Baha'i house of worship, will be built. And of course, the allusions and prophecies in it, we will get to in a second. The site which was to serve as the permanent resting place of the Bab, okay? Nigh on 100 years ago, now this is written in 1987 by the House of Justice, so it makes a couple of references that the reason I point that out to you. Nigh on 100 years ago, Baha'u'llah walked on God's holy mountain and revealed the Tablet of Carmel, the charter of the world center of his faith, calling into being the metropolis of the kingdom of God on earth. Through decades of oppression and expansion, persecution and emancipation, his followers have successfully labored to carry his message to the remotest regions of the earth, to erect the structure of his administrative order, and to proclaim to mankind the divinely prescribed cure for all its ills. In the past 8 years, and again, this is prior to this letter, so it would be beginning in the 8 years from the Islamic Revolution in 1979. So that's what that's alluding to. In the past 8 years, the agony suffered by his lovers in Iran have awakened the interest of a slumbering world and have brought his faith to the center of human attention. On this same Mount Carmel, Abdu'l-Baha, with infinite pains, raised the mausoleum of the Bab on the spot chosen by his father, and laid to rest within its heart the sacred remains of the prophet herald of the faith, establishing a spiritual center of immeasurable significance. In accordance with the same divine command, Shoghi Effendi embellished the shrine with an exquisite shell. Now, what he's talking about here is the original building is actually encompassed by the columns and the golden dome of the shrine. This is a superstructure that was designed by William Maxwell the father of Ruya Khanum. And then we have this lovely phrase, the construction of the administrative center of the faith to comprise centering on the monuments of the, 5 buildings in a harmonious style of architecture, standing on a far-flung arc, centering on the monuments of the greatest holy leaf, her mother and brother. And that would be Bahia Khanum. And then the greatest holy lead would be Bahia Khanum, and then Asiya Khanum, her mother, and then her brother, who would be Mirza Midi. The first of these 5 buildings, the International Archives, was completed in the beloved guardian's lifetime. The second, the seat of House of Justice, now stands at the apex of the arc. And of course, at this time in 1987, the other buildings had not been completed. So this is the way the mountain looked when Baha'u'llah pointed out to when Baha'u'llah pointed out to Abdu'l-Baha where the shrine would be built and where the mausoleum would be built. This at the promontory of the mountain here, here is the monastery and the place where Baha'u'llah revealed the tablet would be about here. This is the far-flung arc. And so the archives building, which was built during the time of Shoghi Effendi, is this building here. And you'll notice Shoghi Effendi decided on the architectural style and approved of all of the designs. Not of all the other buildings, but they took their cue, the architects did, from the guardian's desire to have them utilize and emulate a classic, a cross between a classic and a modern style. In the same way, he chose the nature of the language in which he translated the holy text. So you have here the archives building, which has been extended considerably underground. You have the Center for the Holy Text here. You have the House of Justice at the apex of the arc, and the Center for the Study of the Text here, the Teaching Center. And, and then another building which will be built, the 5th building, will be a library on the left side of this building here. And here are the gardens, and you see down here are the resting places of these figures of Bahia Khanum, Asiya Khanum, and Mirza Mehdi. Then the King's Highway, as it's called, this stairway going up to the shrine, the mausoleum. And again, all of this is built on the building that Abdu'l-Baha himself designed and built. So when you see it, it's interesting to get underneath these porticos and look up and imagine what it looked like, though we have pictures of it. Originally, it had 6 rooms, and then the Guardian added 3 more on the back, so it is square. And the resting place of the Bab is directly under the dome, is centered in the metal room. So basically, you have in effect 9 rooms, and the center one is where the Bab is interred, and Abdu'l-Baha is presently interred in the middle room in the first row of 3 rooms. And that his remains will be removed to the shrine that is currently being built once that is completed. So why is it called a charter of the cause? We're going to see why. Together with Baha'u'llah's Tablet of Carmel and the Master's Will and Testament, which we will, we've gone through before, but we'll go through again next week. The tablets of the divine plan were described by Shoghi Effendi as 3 of the charters of the cause. So the Tablet of Carmel, the Will and Testament, which establishes the institutions that will effectively be the finished architecture of the administrative order, and then the tablets of the divine plan, which are the beginnings of the teaching plan. And so you have these two pillars, if you will, and that will be the discussion we'll have next week will be the twin pillars of religion, and they will deal with these two parts of the administrative order, one which is the rulers or the executive branch, and the other the learned and the teaching branch of the learned. And we'll discuss how that's constructed and how it evolved in the time of Shoghi Effendi and the House of Justice. The Tablet of Carmel, then we're going to read it. It's not very long, and it, of course, uses several images that are very obvious but important. The main one, of course, is the ark, and the ark has about three different meanings. You've got the ARK, which is sailing the ark of the covenant on the holy mountain. So this is, of course, an allusion to Noah and the covenant of Noah, and those who are within the covenant are, in effect, are safe and secure. And of course, it's the Ark of the Covenant in the same thing. It alludes to the Ark of the Covenant in the Judaic faith, where the 10 Commandments were carried about. So they carried the law with them, the guidance with them. And so this will be the source of guidance. So that's another sense in which it's the ark. And then you have the literal ark, the far-flung ark, which is the array of the buildings that constitute the administration and the teaching, the twin branches or the twin pillars of the faith. And the importance of it, as we will discuss next week, are that you can't have one without the other, that each is inseparable from the other. The same thing you have at the beginning of the Kitabi Agdas, where each person is required to do two things: to recognize the manifestation and to do what he says. So you have spiritual understanding followed by action, and these twin things are carried out in the administrative order with the understanding or learning, and then the rulers put that learning into action through various plans. All glory be to this day, the day in which the fragrances of mercy have been wafted over all created things. A day so blessed that past ages and centuries can never hope to rival it. A day in which the countenance of the Ancient of Days had turned towards his holy seat. Thereupon the voices of all created things, and beyond them those of the concourse on high, were heard calling aloud, "Haste thee, O Carmel! For lo, the light of the countenance of God, the ruler of the kingdom of dames and fashioner of the heavens, hath been lifted upon thee." Seized with transports of joy and raising high her voice, she thus exclaimed, "May my life be a sacrifice to thee." Now, this is interesting again, the poetic discourse you have here that Baha'u'llah has created. So the voice of the Holy Spirit calls out to Carmel, and Carmel responds, "May my life be a sacrifice to thee, inasmuch as thou hast fixed thy gaze upon me, hast bestowed upon me thy bounty, and hast directed towards me thy steps. Separation from thee, O thou source of everlasting life, hath well nigh consumed me, and my remoteness from thy presence hath burned away my soul. All praise be to thee for having enabled me to hearken to thy call, for having honored me with thy footsteps, and for having quickened my soul through the vitalizing fragrance of thy day and the shrilling voice of thy pen, a voice thou didst ordain as thy trumpet call amidst thy people. And when the hour at which thy resistless faith was to be made manifest did strike, thou didst breathe the breath of thy spirit into thy pen, and lo, the entire creation shook to its very foundations, unveiling to mankind such mysteries as lay hidden within the treasuries of him who is the possessor of all created things. No sooner, and of course, again, this is the creative nature of Baha'u'llah's writing, the personification of the mountain. And then you have the response from the Holy Spirit to Carmel. No sooner had her voice reached that most exalted spot than we made reply. Render thanks unto thy Lord, O Carmel. The fire of thy separation from me was fast consuming thee, when the ocean of my presence surged before thy face, cheering thine eyes and those of all creation, and filling with delight all things visible and invisible. Rejoice, for God hath in this day established upon thee his throne, hath made thee the dawning place of his signs, and the dayspring of the evidences of his revelation. Well is it with him that circleth round thee, that proclaimeth the revelation of thy glory, and recounteth that which the bounty of the Lord of thy God hath showered upon thee. Seize thou the chalice of immortality in the name of thy Lord, the all-glorious, and give thanks unto him, inasmuch as he, in token of his mercy unto thee, hath turned thy sorrow into gladness, and transmuted thy grief into blissful joy. He verily loveth the spot which hath been made the seat of his throne, which his footsteps have trodden, which hath been honored by his presence, from which he raised his call, and upon which he shed his tears. Again, imagine that of course, the persona in this is the Holy Spirit, but it is also literally the Holy Spirit as emanating from the voice of Baha'u'llah, whose footsteps are indeed at the very moment this is being revealed, standing upon the promontory of the mountain. So you can imagine it's such a visual image, an incredible thing. And he is foreseeing in his own mind the establishment of the administrative order upon this mountain. Now, again, of course, we accept that now because we see it and we've seen it built, and how could it be otherwise? But you saw how barren and rocky and the slopes of that mountain were, and what they look like now. And how could Baha'u'llah be so sure that this would happen? Well, because he's a manifestation of God, of course. But it's rather confirming when you see him prophesying that this is going to happen, and we see it happen, in spite of all the persecutions of the Baha'is, in spite. I remember Dr. Rue, when I was on pilgrimage in 1972, saying when the story of how these properties got, the mysteries of how these properties were obtained bit by bit and piece by piece, it will be one of the greatest detective stories in the world, greatest mystery stories in the world. Call out to Zion, O Carmel, and announce the joyful tidings. He that was hidden from mortal eyes is come. His all-conquering sovereignty is manifest. His all-encompassing splendor is revealed. Beware lest thou hesitate or halt. Hasten forth and circumambulate the city of God that hath descended from heaven, the celestial Kaaba, round which have circled in adoration the favored of God, the pure in heart, and the company of the most exalted angels. Oh, how I long to announce unto every spot on the surface of the earth, and to carry to each one of its cities the glad tidings of this revelation, a revelation to which the heart of Sinai hath been attracted, and whose name the burning bush is calling. Unto God, the Lord of Lords, belong the kingdoms of earth and heaven. Verily, this is the day in which both land and sea rejoice at this announcement, the day for which have been laid up those things which God, through a bounty beyond the ken of mortal mind or heart, hath destined for revelation. Ere long will God sail his ark upon thee, and will manifest the people of Baha, who have been mentioned in the book of names. So here again, you see this image of sailing the ark, and reminds us, of course, of the tablet of the Holy Mariner, which utilizes the same image. So the ark as a boat, the ark as a container of the covenant, and then the ark of the buildings, and so on. So you have this sort of trifold entendre And then the conclusion: sanctified be the Lord of all mankind, at the mention of whose name all the atoms of the earth have been made to vibrate, and the tongue of grandeur hath been moved to disclose that which hath been wrapped in his knowledge, and lay concealed within the treasury of his might. He verily, through the potency of his name, the mighty, the all-powerful, the Most High, is the ruler of all that is in heaven and all that is on earth. So the Tablet of Carmel, fairly simple. There's not much in it other than this prophecy, but it's incredibly beautiful. And of course, there's that lovely song, the Queen of Carmel, that has been written some years ago, but is quite lovely tribute to the Shrine of the Bab. Then we turn to the Book of the Covenant. Now, the Book of the Covenant is only a couple of pages long, but it's the will and testament, or it contains within it the will and testament. Now, I say contains within it because it's more than just his will and testament. His will and testament is very simple. He ordains that Abdu'l-Baha succeed. But he embeds this directive within a number of other guidance, pieces of guidance to both the Baha'is in general, but more particularly to his family, because of course, being a manifestation and having access to omniscience or foreknowledge, he knows what Abdu'l-Baha is about to face. And in fact, as we'll discuss next time, even as the Kitabi Ad, written in his own hand, was being read, the malfeasance of Mirza Muhammad Ali was taking place as he was taking seal rings and all kinds of other papers and so on, that Abdu'l-Baha had entrusted him while Abdu'l-Baha took care of the body and so on, which is very reminiscent of what happened with the ascension of Muhammad, and absconding with them or hiding them and already planning to rebel against the covenant. So that's implicit in this document, is that Baha'u'llah is well aware that this has been happening and will happen. Now, this is an introduction from Shoghi Effendi. To direct and canalize these forces let loose by this heaven-sent process, and to ensure their harmonious and continuous operation after his ascension, an instrument divinely ordained, invested with indisputable authority, organically linked with the author of the revelation himself, was clearly indispensable. This had never happened before. And that is, you can say that, yes, Moses directed that Joshua succeed him, and yes, Muhammad directed that Ali succeed him, but never had a document been written in the hand of the manifestation saying, here's what should happen. That instrument Baha'u'llah had expressly provided through the institution of the covenant, an institution which he had firmly established prior to his ascension. This same covenant he had anticipated in his Kitabi Agdas, that's where he also says that Abdu'l-Baha will succeed him, had alluded to it as he bade his last farewell to the members of his family, who had been summoned to his bedside in the days immediately preceding his ascension, and had incorporated it in a special document which he designated as the Book of My Covenant, and which he entrusted during his last illness to his eldest son, Abdu'l-Baha. But no one had opened it or read it yet, so it was written in his own hand shortly before his ascension. Written entirely in his own hand, unsealed on the 9th day after his ascension, in the presence of 9 witnesses chosen from amongst his companions and members of his family, read subsequently on the afternoon of that same day before a large company assembled in his most holy tomb, including his sons, some of the Bab's kinsmen, pilgrims and resident believers. This unique and epoch-making document designated by Baha'u'llah as his most great tablet and alluded to him as the Crimson Book in his epistle to the Son of the Wolf, can find no parallel in the scriptures of any previous dispensation, not excluding that of the Bab himself. For nowhere in the books pertaining to any of the world's religious systems, not even among the writers of the author of the Baha'i revelation, do we find any single document establishing a covenant endowed with an authority comparable to the covenant with which Baha'u'llah Himself instituted. So in other words, this isn't saying that the other manifestations didn't have a covenant, or that the Bab did not sufficiently allude to Baha'u'llah as his successor. It's saying nothing comparable to this was done. So things were done, and we saw that when we studied the succession, or the interruption of the succession, the intended succession of the Bab of Muhammad to Ali, and we find that a wonderful passage in God Passes By that Shoghi Effendi points out, where the Bab says that blessed is he who follows the order of Baha'u'llah. And so he's very explicit. Of course, before his execution, the Bab has his seal rings and pins, a pin case and so on, ordains that it be sent to Baha'u'llah. Well, that's obviously a fairly important symbolic gesture. So firm and mighty is this covenant, he who is the appointed center has affirmed, this is Abdu'l-Baha has affirmed, that from the beginning of time until the present day, no religious dispensation hath produced its like. It is undoubtedly clear, he furthermore stated, that the pivot of the oneness of mankind is nothing else but the power of the covenant. Know thou, he has written, that the sure handle mentioned from the foundation of the world in the books, the tablets and the scriptures of old, is naught else but the covenant and the testament. Now, the sure handle, you may not be familiar with that, but it occurs throughout the writings of the Bab and throughout the Quran as well. Of course, we think of a sure handle as immediately think of a farm implement or something, or a firm cord is another image that's used, but it's referring to that with which you cling to the covenant, how you seize on it. And again, the lamp of the covenant is the light of the world, and the words traced by the pen of the Most High, a limitless ocean. The Lord, the all glorified, he has moreover declared, hath beneath the shade of the tree of Anisa made the covenant, new covenant, and established a great testament. Hath such a covenant been established in any previous dispensation, age, period, or century? Hath such a testament set down by the pen of the Most High ever been witnessed? No, by God. And finally, Abdu'l-Baha says this, the power of the covenant is as the heat of the sun, which quickeneth and promoteth the development of all created things on earth. The light of the covenant, in like manner, is the educator of the minds, spirits, the hearts and souls of men. To this same covenant, he has in his writings referred to as the conclusive testimony, the universal balance, the magnet of God's grace, the upraised standard, the irrefutable testament, the almighty covenant, the like of which the sacred dispensations of the past have never witnessed, and one of the distinctive features of this most mighty cycle. So those are the statements about the importance of this document by Shoghi Effendi, and of course there are many others. Here's one more statement. Let me have some of my tea. By Shoghi Effendi, extolled by the writer of the Apocalypse. Now, he's talking about St. John the Divine, the book of Revelations, as the ark of his testament. So he was foreshadowing or prophesying in the book of Revelations the Ark of the Testament, associated with the gathering beneath the tree of Anisa, mentioned by Baha'u'llah in the hidden words, glorified by him in other passages in his writing as the Ark of Salvation and as the cord, here's the cord analogy, stretched betwixt earth and the Abha kingdom. This covenant has been bequeathed to posterity in a will and testament which, together with the Kitabi Aqdas and several tablets, in which the rank and station of Abdu'l-Baha are unequivocally disclosed, constitute the chief buttress designed by the Lord of the Covenant himself to shield and support after his ascension, the appointed center of his faith and delineator of its future institutions. And of course, that's what Abdu'l-Baha does in his will and testament, is he delineates the future institutions, the guardianship, the institution of the hands of the cause, the parameters of the operation and the process of election of the House of Justice. And we will go over that again next week. But also we will go into what happens at the reading of this document. That such a unique and sublime station should have been conferred upon Abdu'l-Baha did not, and indeed could not, surprise those exiled companions who had for so long been privileged to observe his life and conduct, nor the pilgrims who had been brought, however fleetingly, into personal contact with him, nor indeed the vast concourse of the faithful who in distant lands had grown to revere his name and appreciate his labors, nor even the wide circle of his friends and acquaintances who in the Holy Land and the adjoining countries were already well familiar with the position he had occupied during the lifetime of his father. So before we begin, of course, these two terms which are used in the document that you need to be familiar with, you probably already are because we've gone over them before. The Afnan, which are the twigs of the sacred oak tree, are the descendants of the two brothers of the Bab's wife and the Bab's maternal uncles. And of course, Shoghi Effendi was both descended from both the Bab and Baha'u'llah, which is one of the reasons in the beginning of, well, let me not get into that. Then the Agsan, which is the plural of Usan, means branches, the branches of the sacred oak tree, that is the family of Baha'u'llah, specifically his sons and his descendants. Abdu'l-Baha was designated as the most great branch, the Ghasuni Azam, and preceding Mirza Muhammad Ali, the greater branch, Ghasuni Akbar. So you have a grammatical importance here. You've got the degrees of greatness. You've got great, greater, greatest. So the greater branch, Mirza Muhammad Ali, is not as great as the greatest or most great. So the grammar of that is important because it ensures the order of succession. So this is the Kitabi Adi. Although the realm, and notice it's not until this page here, not page, this paragraph, the will of the divine testator or testator, I forget how it's pronounced, is this. And this is where he says what his will is. Everything else before that is leading up to that. And he addresses them and he gives them various cautions that are very important. So, although the realm of glory hath none of the vanities of the world, yet within the treasury of trust and resignation we have bequeathed to our heirs an excellent and priceless heritage. Earthly treasures we have not bequeathed, nor have we added such cares as they entail. Now, isn't that interesting? By God, in earthly riches fear is hidden and peril is concealed. Consider ye and call to mind that which the All-Merciful hath revealed in the Quran. Woe betide every slanderer and defamer, him that layeth up riches and counteth them, Fleeting are the riches of the world. All that perisheth and changeth not is not, and hath never been worthy of attention except to a recognized measure. And of course, the recognized measure is also designed in the Agdas, so far as the Hukuka law and giving to the funds and so on. God hath forgiven what is past. Henceforth, everyone should utter that which is meet and seemly, and should refrain from slander, abuse. And you think, why is he talking about slander and abuse? Well, because again, he foreknows that this is about to occur most grievously to Baha'u'llah, to Abdul Baha. Abuse and whatever causes sadness in men. Lofty is the station of man. Not long ago, this exalted word streamed forth from the treasury of our pen of glory. Great and blessed is this day, the day in which all that lay latent in man hath been and will be made manifest. Lofty is the station of man. Were he to hold fast to righteousness and truth, and to remain firm and steadfast in the cause, in the eyes of the all-merciful, a true man appeareth even as a firmament. Its sun and moon are his sight and hearing, and his shining and resplendent character its stars. His is the loftiest station, and his influence educateth the world of being. So this great station with which man is adorned. Every receptive soul who hath in this day inhaled the fragrance of his garment, and hath with a pure heart, his, of course, capitalized because it's referring to Baha'u'llah himself, with a pure heart set his face towards all glorious horizon, is reckoned among the people of Baha in the crimson book. Grasp ye in my name the chalice of my loving kindness, drink then your fill in my glorious and wondrous remembrance. O ye that dwell on earth, the religion of God is for love and unity. Make it not the cause of enmity or dissension. And here again, directly talking to the Agsan and the Afnan, so many of whom became covenant breakers. In the eyes of men of insight and the beholders of the most sublime vision, whatsoever are the effective means for safeguarding and promoting the happiness and welfare of the children of men, have already been revealed by the pen of glory. But the foolish ones of the earth, being nurtured in evil passions and desires, have remained heedless. I lost my place. Have remained heedless of the consummate wisdom of him who in truth is in truth the all-wise, while their words and deeds are prompted by idle fancies and vain imaginings. O ye loved ones and trustees of God, kings are the manifestations of the power and the daysprings of the might and riches of God. Pray ye on their behalf. He hath invested them with the rulership of the earth, and hath singled out the hearts of men as his own domain. Here again, conflict and contention are categorically forbidden in his book. This is a decree of God in this most great revelation. It is divinely preserved from annulment and is invested by him with the splendor of his confirmation. Verily, he is the all-knowing, the all-wise. It is incumbent upon everyone to aid those daysprings of authority and sources of command who are adorned with the ornament of equity and justice. Blessed are the rulers and the learned among the people of Baha. And again, he's mentioned this in the Agdas, and he mentions it here again, the rulers and the learned. They are my trustees among my servants and the manifestations of my commandments amidst my people. Upon them rest my glory, my blessings, and my grace, which have pervaded the world of being. And this connection, the utterances revealed in the Kitab-i Agdas are such that from the horizon of their words, the light of divine grace shineth luminous and resplendent. O ye my branches, a mighty force, a consummate power lieth concealed in the world of being. Fix your gaze upon it and upon its unifying influence, and not upon the differences which appear from it. Again, over and over. It's almost the central theme of the work up until this part here, which is the testament itself. So in other words, everything preceding this statement of giving the authority to Abdul Baha is forewarning what happens or what can happen if there is disorder or if there's conflict among his followers. The will of the divine testator is this: it is incumbent upon the Agsan, the Afnan, and my kindred to turn one and all their faces towards this most mighty branch. Consider that which we have revealed in our most holy book. And this he quotes from his own holy book. When the ocean of my presence hath ebbed and the book of my revelation is ended, turn your faces towards him whom God hath purposed, who hath branched from this ancient root. And this is a quote from the Agdas. The object of this sacred verse is none other except the most mighty branch, Abdul Baha. Now, why is that in brackets? Well, we'll explain it later. Thus have we graciously revealed unto you our potent will, and I am verily the gracious, the all-powerful. Verily God hath ordained the station of the greater branch, Muhammad Ali, to be beneath that of the most great branch, Abdul Baha. He is in truth the ordainer, the all-wise. We have chosen the greater after, and that after means succeeding afterward, the most great, as decreed by him who is the all-knowing, the all-informed. So he says it about 3 different ways. It is enjoined upon everyone to manifest love towards the Agsan, but God hath not granted them any right to the property of others. And this is so important because they take over the whole of Baji and prevent Abdul Baha from coming in there, and even in some cases from visiting the tomb of his father. And when he does go by, eventually is able to visit the tomb of his father, he is berated by them. They call him names and shout at him and so on. O ye my Agsan, my Afnan, and my kindred, we exhort you to fear God, to perform praiseworthy deeds, and to do that which is meet and seemly and serveth to exalt your station. Verily I say, fear of God is the greatest commander that can render the cause of God victorious. And the host which best befit this commander have ever been, are an upright character and pure and goodly deeds. Say, O servants, let not the means of order be made the cause of confusion and the instrument of union and occasion for discord. So don't take this tool I've given you, both the Agdas and this document, the covenant, and make it become a source of contention. Of course, he knows again that that's what's going to happen. We fain would hope that the people of Baha may be guided by the blessed words, say, all things are of God. This exalted utterance is likened to the water for quenching, the fire of hate and enmity, which smoldereth within the hearts and breasts of men. By this single utterance, contending peoples and kindreds will attain the light of true unity. Verily he speaketh the truth and leadeth the way. He is the powerful, the exalted, the gracious. It is incumbent upon everyone to show courtesy to and have regard for the Agsan, that thereby the cause of God may be glorified and his word exalted. This injunction hath time and again been mentioned and recorded in the Holy Writ. Well is it with him who is enabled to achieve that which the ordainer, the Ancient of Days, hath prescribed for him. Ye are bidden, moreover, to respect the members of the holy household, the Afnan and the kindred. We further admonish you to serve all nations and to strive for the betterment of the world. That which is conducive to the regeneration of the world and the salvation of the peoples and kindreds of the earth hath been sent down from the heaven of the utterance of him who is the desire of the world. Give ye a hearing ear to the counsels of the pen of glory. Better is this for you than all that which is on heaven, than all that is on the earth. Unto this beareth witness my glorious and wondrous book. Now, I said, why is Abdul Baha put in brackets? Brackets means is an editorial interpolation. An editorial interpolation is distinct from a parentheses, because a parentheses is something that the author himself will put in, whereas brackets means this is something an editor with authority puts in to explain this is what is meant. So you may ask, why didn't Baha'u'llah simply say Abdul Baha? Very simply, the name Abdul Baha had not been created yet. This was a name that Abdul Baha himself created, so that when people, as they were then, and but particularly after the passing of Baha'u'llah, said that Abdul Baha, in particular Mirza Muhammad Ali, were claiming that Abdul Baha was claiming to be a manifestation. Well, in order to put that claim asunder, he made his name mathematically beneath, in the same way that grammatically greatest is greater than greater. So Abdul Baha means Abd, which means servant, of El Baha, Abdul Baha. So he is a servant, or he is beneath Baha'u'llah. So how can he be equal to if he's a servant of? And so he chose that name, and there's that lovely tablet which we can look at perhaps next week, in which he says this, that this is the name by which he wishes to be called, because of course he had so many other titles and appellations that had been given him, such as Al-Karma, Master, the Mystery of God, and so on. All right. That's the end of the slides and the reading. I'm sorry if you expected more than the reading, but I don't know anything more appropriate to do to appreciate these works than to read them.